today's story that I'm going to cover now, guys, is basically the new home construction scheme that's going on right now. And, basically the question that I want to ask is what the heck? I wanted a choice words there because, for children and my own children, but what is going on with the new home data and why? And I think this is a very important thing to kind of focus on, because who do you trust? Where do you go? And I hope that the viewers gain from the story a better understanding of why new home data is so different than the used home. When I talk about cars, we talk about house, existing homes, okay? And I also want, and I'm hoping that the viewers will understand the cons to watch out for. And that's a double meaning there, pros and cons, and then the cons, salespeople. Anyways, so we're gonna get started, guys, right now. And what I wanna do first of all is I wanna show you guys, and I wanna start by talking about the data manipulation, which is right here. Now, recently I did a tweet, and what I wanted to show the people viewing this is the massive revisions of data and the fact that we really can't trust anyone for anything, and especially when it comes to data. It's almost godlike power. And really what we need to be doing, and I'm just going to give you this right now, is we need to be doing localized analysis of our markets, which means comps in subdivisions, because we cannot trust this data. And towards the end of this presentation, I'm going to show you guys with my MLS. I'm going to access multiple listing service, and I'm going to show you guys that this bottom revision you see here is BS. The top graph right here is a more appropriate depiction on what's going on with new home sales. Plus, I'm going to show you the response that we got from the Census Bureau. We have an email from the Census Bureau explaining these things. But look at this, guys. Essentially, what has happened here is we had massive data revisions, and I want you guys to look at the peaks. The peak in the first data revision, or the first chart, okay? So you guys are looking at new home value, or rather median sales price, which is a horrible indication of value. So the top one is what has been going on for the last, 3 to 4 years. The bottom one is they just decided to change the way they are calculating price groups for median. This is a huge deal, you guys. This is an extremely odd circumstances that is not normal. Revisions are normal, but the revisions that you see here are very abnormal. And I'm going to show you guys that. But first, I wanted to say that the new peak is no longer $500,000. The new peak is now $460,000. That means they made a revision, 2 years old, almost 2 years old revision of $40,000. And in addition, the top graph here, there were 4 months where median sales price was around $480,000. That is all gone. So it's not only the peak that they've revised massive amounts of additional peaks for several other months. So that's all gone. Now, additionally, the top chart shows us 8 months of median sales price being around $440,000. So instead of now 8 months, we have 2 months, okay? The reason why I'm pointing this out, the reason why I feel like this is so important is because, again, just doing the visual here, they have erased the narrative from our history books, which means 20, 30 years from now, if people go back and see what was going on with new homes, they're not going to be able to see that anymore because they changed the data. And so obviously the next question is why did they change the data, right? But so far, would you guys agree, Melody, Jack, would you agree that kind of changes the narrative, doesn't it? I mean, one hand on that top graph, we clearly hit a peak followed by a uncontrollable decline in prices. And then they've revised it to say, oh, actually everything's been sideways this whole time. Do you think that underscored, do you think that's an issue, Melody?
Well, absolutely. I mean, Travis, if someone hadn't captured that point in time snapshot that you're able to show here, 20 years from now, no one would even know that existed. I mean, or it would be buried down in a footnote, somewhere. But this absolutely, kind of belies what we saw happen. And we saw the narrative pushing that fear of missing out. We saw Connor Sin, come in Bloomberg and tell everybody to go out and buy a new home. I mean, and so that FOMO, it's as if that, I think you've said this on one of your shows, it's as if that FOMO never really existed. To me, this revises history. Absolutely.
And, real quick, I want to show the viewers. So first of all, here's the problem as well that I want to point out. The difference between new homes and existing is there is literally no requirement for new home companies to list on MLS. And in fact, they would probably prefer not to list their properties on MLS because it's cheaper for them not to. And so there's really not a lot of incentive. And also think about it, you guys, realtors that are selling existing homes, what sells at? The MLS. For new home builders, they pay money in advertisements, usually commercials. And so that's the way that they generate business normally. So it's not necessarily the MLS. But nevertheless, you guys, I want to show again the viewers how horrible new home data really is. They don't track, you guys, the Federal Reserve, the government, whoever we're talking about, they don't track what's going on with new homes because there's no requirement to report the data. In fact, the data is reported from a silly little survey that is being completed by the actual new home builders. And so, this is very interesting. They actually put a special notice here, basically saying what happened with revisions, which was new price groupings have also been introduced, okay, in our time series file. Now, I'm going to get back to that. I'm just letting you know that there's a brief explanation in here that is absolute garbage. Now, if you're one of the people that thinks that all of the information from new homes is being reported from the census and we're just crazy, then I would suggest do a little bit of research and go to the go to the notes here, and it will state that basically the statistics in table 1 in this release are based on a non-probability sample and not subject to sampling error. They are, however, still subject, here it is, to non-sampling error. And here's the important part. The total quantity response rate for these estimates is, you guys ready? 76%. What does that mean? It means that there's another minimum, and this is even off, 24% of the data we don't even have. We don't even have 24% of the data. So in my opinion, maybe they should be more worried about, getting more of the data and less about price groups that fit their narrative. But hey, who am I? But let's fast forward to the response. So this is crazy, you guys. So Jason Walter actually, and big shout out to Jason Walter. Jason Walter emailed the Census Bureau and he asked them in so many words, what the hell, right? You made massive revisions. How can we accurately report about the housing market when you can't accurately report the data? So it's an embarrassment. To the U.S. Census Bureau, you're embarrassing us. Get your act together, guys. But this is what they said regarding the revisions. This is crazy. It's really the second paragraph, but I'm going to read both. Regarding the revisions, we are applying to the housing unit sold for sale and monthly supply from 2019 to 2024. Okay, so they've made revisions for those 5 years. This is their annual revisions. The annual revision is usually a routine procedure, and we typically apply it during our April report. Okay, so far it makes sense, okay? Now, unlike the monthly revisions we typically apply in the past 3 recent months, these annual revisions are less to do with adjusting the counts for missing and corrected units and more to do with an adjustment to data. I'm sorry, more done to adjust the data to updates, and this is misspelling, to our seasonal factors. So in essence, what they're saying here is we've adjusted our seasonal factors, okay? And I'm gonna read the second paragraph. I'm sorry for mispronouncing that. While the annual revisions exhibited for homes sold, sales, and months of supply are routine, listen guys, the revision of the sales prices from 2020 to 2024 is unique. It is special. It is different. It is alarming. It is not normal. Something happened. They are acknowledging it. As mentioned to the note on the report, alongside the release of the new residential sales report, we have introduced a version of our sales data with, here we go, updated price ranges. They have removed and included additional price groups. You can't do that. We've been tracking the data a certain way for decades, and they've removed that because they can and because it fits their narrative. This goes on in creating these new price groupings. They've created new price groupings. They haven't told us what those are. They haven't told us, is it in every metro? Are you just excluding Austin? Are you now just including Miami? We can't trust you, is my point. So this goes on. It presented us with an opportunity. So this is the Census Bureau, by the way, guys. It presented them with an opportunity to screw us. I'm sorry, that's not what it says. It presented them with an opportunity to re-examine their pricing data and recalculate the prices based on additional data and revisions found since the data were published. But again, what they have done is they just simply created new pricing groups. And what they have done is put different variances of a weight to be put on there. This is absolute criminal. To me, this is absolute criminal. I'm going to, do you guys have anything there so far? Jack, ask Melly, I mean, what do you think so far about this explanation about, because we can, and you can't do crap about it? That's how I read that. What do you think, Zach?
When's the last time they made a revision to the data that made them look worse? Them, the people reporting the numbers, them, the party in power, right? We see these adjustments to CPI. Do they ever send inflation higher? No, they always make inflation look lower. We've seen all these after the fact revisions to the jobs numbers to revise it lower, but then of course they don't cover that. So it allows them to lie before the fact and then change it after. The error distributions are always favorable to the bureaucrats reporting the data. And that's the problem, because these data points are too important. Huge decisions, public policy decisions, legislation, people's economic choices are based on this data. And I always use the phrase garbage in, garbage out. If these are garbage statistics, then the decisions being made based on them are going to be equally garbage.
And it is equally garbage. But I asked the question, Melody, and I wanted to, but I'm asking, like, why would they do this? And I'll get to that, Melody. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say one thing I kind of pointed out in my Substack is that, these national builders use these numbers in their models. The banks that give them those huge syndicated loans so that they can build these homes, use those home prices in their models. And so what you're seeing right here on full display is the bezel, which means that essentially, these overinflated prices are what was used to fund lending to the builders. And basically, were their earnings erased as well?
I'm actually going to get to that was the why part, right? Because I thought, okay, well, why would they want to do that? So, to me, the questions, the answer's obvious. They're stocks. And actually, I tracked this back to the day the revisions were made, which was the 23rd of May, which is right here. And first of all, here's Lennar stock. Their stock went up from the date of that revision. Okay, so again, it didn't go up much, but it still went up. You can see that right here. So here was the day of the revisions. It went up a little sideways, and then it kind of started screaming upward. The same thing happened with DR Horton, which is right here. Let me go to the 1 month real quick. So DR Horton, we had a little bit of a low right here on the 23rd. Fast forward to today, the stock's higher. So again, to me, it makes sense. They want to continue the punch bowl. They want to keep drinking the punch. They want to keep tapping people's money. But it's not just the data manipulation, you guys, that really concerns me. It's the overinflation. It's the overvaluation. These homes are overvalued. And again, I want to go to this, and thank you, Melody. Big shout out to you for getting this. This is Freddie Mac. Freddie Mac came out with seller concession concerns. And what's happening right now, guys, is a lot of these new home builders are not reporting the seller concessions. They're not. And so many of those homes and homeowners are purchasing homes that are overvalued. And the people that are reselling or selling are also doing the same thing because they've created comps. I'm going to read this report from Freddie Mac that is warning. They have shot a warning shot across the bow of these homeowners. And I'm wondering, is that the revision? Is the revision because they got that warning shot from Freddie Mac and now they've readjusted the values downward to account for seller concessions? I don't know, but let me read this. Payment is made. This is Freddie Mac saying, watch your butt. Okay, so payment is made in terms of cash in US dollars or in terms of financial agreements comparable thereto. And here we go. The price represents the normal, that's the key word, normal consideration for the property sold, unaffected by rate buy downs or 4% interest rate. You remember the rate buy downs? okay, that are not affected by special or creative financing, it says it here, or sales concessions granted by anyone associated with the sale. And so you guys, they reviewed this. Again, this is a warning shot fired, okay? I think people that are upside down in new homes, they should, actually, I gotta be careful saying this because I'm not an attorney, but if I was one of those people, I would be talking to my attorney, like, hey, did they remove the concessions from my appraisal? Oh, they didn't? Well, they don't have QM, qualified mortgage protection anymore, which was the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, Consumer Protection Act. Get it, guys? Within the appraisal populations, appraisals reported seller concessions in 7.6 million comparables. So you guys, it's not even like they didn't have the info. They had the info, but the appraisers failed to make adjustments on 58% of that 7.6 million comparables. You guys, they aren't calculating value correctly when it comes to new home sales. And this is what I mean by that, okay? Here's Lennar, for example. This is in the Houston market. You know, first of all, look at the price cuts. Okay, so anyone that thinks those graphs revisions, home prices for new homes have just been normal, they have it in Houston. And I'm going to show you MLS. So they have it in Houston. But again, you guys, not only that, this is the problem. This is what's not being reported. This is Lennar offering right now a conventional 3, 2, 1, you're done buy down program. Okay, so they're offering a, listen to this, a rate buy down of 2.25% year one. So they're giving you a 2.25% year one. You guys think that's just putting anyone in a bad situation? Year two is a 3.25. Okay, so buy down rate 2.2 in year one, 3.2 in year two, and then 4.25 in year three with a finalized rate of 5.25%. That's not normal. Okay, they're giving you a special offer. Based on the Freddie Mac guidelines, they are required to remove that from value of comparable sales. It's a requirement. You guys see that right here. Lennar is doing it. If I'm a homeowner, I purchased a Lennar, and I'm not happy, and I can't pierce the arbitration agreement that I'm forced to sign, this is what I'm looking at if it's me. This is what I'm looking at. And I also want to show you guys something real quick, okay? Now, first of all, let me show you my MLS. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to pull up an MLS. This is MLS right now. I have my realtor license. This is what you need generally to access MLS. I believe that if the public had access to services like multiple listing service, I think that we would be in such better shape. I think it would be so much harder for people to take advantage of us and to screw us and just the greed, corruption, and lies. Give the public the data and don't taint it. Leave it alone. Okay, the MLS is, in my opinion, one of the only ways to get out of the darkness. If you want to be unblindfolded, you have to look at comps. And so what I've done, you guys, is I've done something called a market analysis. And I'm going to save you guys time. Here it is right here. A market analysis analyzes a neighborhood. You guys hear me preach about this. It analyzes a subdivision. Each subdivision is unique. And I also say, if you want to find a great deal, it's simple math. Most deals are not great, though. Don't hold your breath. But if you want to, it is just simple math. You don't have to pay some extravagant fee to join some bozo club to learn how to do this. You just have to add 2 + 2. And I'll tell you the answer, you guys, it's 4, no matter what, 2 + 2. And so what you see here is a market analysis. You see that here on the top. You see, this is a big community, by the way. They sold, and I'm going back to 2022 because that's the peak. Remember the chart we looked at? It peaked at about 500,000 in October of 2022. And so here's the 2022 data for the subdivision that's right down the street from me. There was a total of 380, that's a lot, right? 382 homes sold in just this one subdivision during the year, as you see here, of 2022. I've covered January 1st all the way on to the end of December. This is in the subdivision right here. You guys see, if you are in Houston, check my work by all means. I'm showing you it here. This is in the subdivision called Tavola. Now, you guys, it tells me in 2022 that the average home in Tavola sold for $149 a square foot. Okay, so I've equipped myself now. So I know the average home in Tavola sold for $149 a square foot. And so now that I've equipped myself, now that I can see the data, and this is new home data, keep in mind, so there's missing data here. Because remember, they don't report everything. So a new home builder in Texas, this is what they do. Texas is non-disclosure. So it's a non-disclosure state. In Texas, these new home builders will sell a bundle of 20 houses, say it's to a fractional owner, whoever it is, they'll sell 20 houses as an example for under 20% under value, 20 houses, 20% under value, and they will never report that data. And because of the nature of Texas being a non-disclosure state, the seller does not have to report how much they purchased the house for. There's a massive lack of transparency, but again, here's the data we need. It's simple math, $149.40 a square foot. So what I'm going to show you guys now is here's the active listings. Okay, so I've accessed MLS. I know $149. That was back 2 years ago. That was 2 years ago. Prices only go up, right? No, they don't. They go down as well. So what you guys see here is all of the active listings in Tavola. There's a total of 57. And what I do, this is the realtor in me. I love numbers. I'm a dork. You guys know that. I just categorize all the active listings by price per square foot. So I know right away what is selling for under market value. And I just wanted to bring your attention to this very first comparable sale. This very first comparable sale is selling for $120 a square foot. What does that mean? That's 20% off the peak. You guys, I'm showing you a house. Live access data. You, by all means, check my work. The very first listing right there is 20% under the peak. Prices are going down despite the revisions that are BS. And I also want to point out this, okay? The first two comps right here, over 15%. First of all, there's about 6 houses right now in Tavola that are 15% under peak, okay? So 15% under peak, there are 6 houses. It's possible to find an okay deal if you know how to do simple math. But here's what's interesting, guys. Take a note of this. Of these first 4 properties, let's say these first, actually, you know what? We'll go to first 5 properties. Of these first 5 properties that are selling drastically under the peak, I want you guys to know that 3 of them are resales. 3 of those properties that are selling for massive amounts under peak are current owners, which means we see right now that in order for current owners of new build communities, in order for them to compete with the builder, they must sell for under market value. And even then, the builder still has enough cushion of profit to still slice your legs out from underneath you. We see that because the first and second comp, it's not a comp yet because it hasn't sold, first and second listing is the cheapest. And those are brand new houses. So there's, I mean, do you guys see the issue here? I mean, you know, in other words, and I'm kind of done presenting there. This is bullshit. Excuse my language. If you really want to know what's going, you got to get the MLS, and the public needs access to the MLS. The MLS is showing the decline. The subdivisions are showing the decline. That revision is nonsense. I just didn't have enough time to do more. I just showed you guys one because we don't have enough time here. I could show you guys several subdivisions right now in Houston. They're off peak by 15%, some listings 20%. And so if people aren't careful, if they're not doing that work, and this is my last warning to people, if you're not putting in the work, don't expect to win. The system is designed to work against you. It's sad, it's frustrating, it's even scary, but it exists. And this is how we have to play the game. And I'm a realtor, and I've showed you behind the scenes how to do this. I've charged you nothing, you guys. You have to do what I'm saying. Maybe you'll be okay, maybe you won't, but if you want the best chance of winning, I'm not a financial advisor, but if you want the best chance of winning, please look behind the curtains. That's my show. That's my presentation. I'm sorry.
So Travis, you know, I think it's excellent when people have this behind the scene data because they can really see for themselves what's going on in their local markets. But as you said, you know, obviously this is only limited to realtors, but do you have access today, for instance, to a Florida MLS?
No, I'm at the mercy of the residents as well. That's the problem.
Right. So meaning that, you know, the system in a way is designed where no one can ever really validate aggregate information. I mean, you know, what I found out about a lot of the MLSs is they don't have to syndicate to realtor.com, which is, you know, I'll just keep saying this, realtor.com. That's the data you see on Fred. for inventory for sale and also for the median list price. And so there's no way for just a normal human being to kind of validate that information. And we don't know which MLSs are syndicating to realtor and which ones aren't. Yeah. And some of them choose not to because they see it as competition. So, if you're a normal person, how can you do this?
You have to listen to what I'm saying. Okay, you need access to MLS. So if you have to play some realtor, I don't give a crap. Go play the game, treat them like crap. Probably you shouldn't do that though. But you have to have access to MLS. And another thing that frustrates me, Melody, is people like, oh, well, it's okay to make revisions. I've got comments like, Travis, you're a fool. They say here they're allowed to make revisions. I never said they weren't. What I said is they removed the entire narrative from the history books. And even their special notes say that this is a unique, and it's infers it's like a one-time thing. But I mean, there's so much stacked against consumers, Melody. They got to go they got to go to hell, man. I mean, if you want to win, you got to get burned. I mean, not burned, but you got to get close to that flame. I don't know how else to do it. You got to go boots on the ground. You got to find out for yourself, because anything less than that, you're trusting a stranger to take care of you.
No, Travis, I'm seeing this trend in every corner of finance where they're just terrified of price discovery. They're doing all these sleazy things to hide what things are actually worth. And I want to share this anecdote I got. This was sent to me by one of my viewers over at Nobody Special from the Tennessee area. He's a big real estate investor, and him and his friend, a fellow real estate investor, they were doing some local traveling, just looking at new developments. And he's saying here, entire tracts of developments, they have utilities in the ground, basic roads, etc. Half the lots have sold signs. My buddy and I were driving one of them, and he calls up his friend, who is the builder's agent in this area, calls her up to congratulate her because of half the properties have sold signs. She starts laughing on the phone. We haven't sold a single property. Yeah. We put signs out to create urgency. You know how it is. Now, I'm a real estate outsider, all right? I am blown away by how fraudulent that seems to me. Half the properties have fake sold signs. How is that not fake advertising? And then she's laughing. She thinks it's funny, and she's saying, you know how it is. Like, this is just generally accepted practice across the industry. Is this really that common?
It's bullshit. And sorry, it's very common. It's very common. The job of these builders is to get you to buy a house, Jack. And so if you go into a new build community and you see 50 houses with sold sign, it creates a sense of fear of missing out. It creates a sense of urgency. It creates a sense of security, a false sense of security, when the reality is it's nonsense. And Melody,
isn't that textbook false advertising?
You know what?
Sure.
Take it away, Melody.
It's just, So I will give an alternative to Dancing with the Devil, Travis, and that would be, drive around in the neighborhoods where you're curious, where you're interested, where you want to buy, and there's some little tricks like look. So if it's an existing neighborhood, drive after it's dark and look and see, okay, which homes are truly occupied. Also kind of look at which ones are in the midst of what looks like a renovation. It's probably a fix and flip, because this is hiding in existing neighborhoods as well. But to your point, Jack, about this is something we were told by new home sales agents when I first started, all of this, that they salt the lots. And if you go back to these subdivisions at night, I have one right down the street from me, where essentially you can go during the day and it looks like there's like cars parked. At Christmas, there's a wreath, it looks like there's like the little lawn jockeys in the front yard. But if you go in there, but there's always only one little girl that goes down to the bus stop every morning. And if you go in after dark, there is no one home. That's all accessories. And so I asked the same question, Jack, and I think that's the question Travis was asking about the credit reporting. Like we have laws that deal with this. It's just, for whatever reason, these people don't think they're subject to those laws.
I'll bring up a question or two, but did you want to add anything so far, Jack, to that?
No, thank you. I found that amazing that something that to me is fraud and false advertising is just generally accepted as everybody does it. Seems gross to me.
It is gross. And just like the narrative thing, people are like, oh, I don't know who these people are. I think it's like a bot.
Giving false information to lure people into making the biggest financial transaction of their lives is what's more fraudulent than that?
Well, I mean, are we really surprised that the teachers and firefighters are paying for the commercial real estate meltdown?
Yeah,
so
best economy ever.
We don't have enforcement. There is no enforcement. It's all a game unless you go against the establishment, then they'll come after you, which is our last story. But here's a quick question. This is from GWAN. Is it only applicable for new builds? I want to look into my area. No, the subdivision analysis is applicable to all properties and subdivisions. The issue, G, is not all properties are located in subdivisions, and that makes it a little bit harder to calculate things like wedge and cash flow and understand trends. And if you're in a situation to where you're interested in a property that is a rural property or is not in a subdivision, generally what the appraisers are doing to calculate comps and value off of comps is they'll take the comparables that are the closest to the property. Now, I will say I've had appraisers go in special situations, go 20 miles away into another city to get comparables. It's very unusual. They did it because there's a special circumstance, which was an ocean view. And so that special characteristic outweighed all of the other fundamentals. But a subdivision analysis is something, or even an analysis, something you should be doing for anything that you want to purchase in real estate. What do you guys think?
Agreed.
You guys think? Okay. And then I have something real quick. Travis, can you pull up older communities that has price reductions, comp sales, same as 20? Yeah, easy. I mean, you guys, it takes, this is what realtors should be doing instead of saying, hey, just buy a house right now. These doomers are maniacs. Home prices only go up the 10-year cycle. Inventory is not important. Income doesn't matter. Just go buy a house. You guys, you could do this. Doesn't matter. Existing, new homes. The thing that is going to make it difficult for you as a consumer is just getting access to that data. I had to become licensed and I had to pay a fee. And that's a huge issue right there. You guys have anything else on this one?
Well, I'll just say, so I agree, but there's little tricks you can do. Like, for instance, if you're interested in a property, even in Texas, you can say, pay my property taxes in Google. Just type pay my property taxes, whatever county. It'll take you to the county website. You can put in the parcel number, the address, and what will pop up, because mortgage companies pay most of the taxes. And so they have to be able to access it. It'll pop up and you'll be able to see the assessed values, how that's changed over time. And I actually was able to help somebody recently, Travis, in Texas, because they felt like their realtor wasn't being honest because, history had been erased off Zillow. They couldn't find, what the property had last been sold for. And you could actually get that information from the tax records. And so there's always little tips or tricks. I would just say add us, try to get in touch with us via social media, and we can give you some tips on if for whatever reason you can't find a realtor you trust or you can't get access to this data, that you can do the best that you can with the limited information that you have.
Good stuff. Jack?
I would just say to people, be real careful with things like those 3-2-1 plans that they were offering. Run the math and look at what your payment's going to be at the end of that expiration. When that last teaser rate expires, what your payments are going to do. If you're one of those, I can always just refinance people, man, ask people who went through that in 2008. That's the dancer scene from The Big Short all over again. No, you can't always refinance, not if you're underwater. So, man, be careful with that stuff.
And something, Travis, too, I'd love to just quickly mention if other people have intel on it. That's what?
I said, did you miss me? Is that what you're going to say? Okay.
No. I was going to say what an interesting thing that I just realized, the way that the builders are accounting for these buy downs that I had not realized, is they're putting them in these demand deposit accounts where they can earn escrow. And so this is how they've been able to afford it. But guys, what if we have that event we're talking about, and suddenly rates go down? They will not be able to earn the money they have been earning. And overnight, those builders' balance sheets, that cash balance, and Lennar has gone out and said several times that they are not trying to build cash. But what if overnight they're not earning that interest on those custodial accounts anymore for that escrow, and it is evaporated? And so, this is how things can happen quickly. And one of the reasons why I think a lot of people couldn't understand why builders still had margin with these buy downs. But this is how you take the money, you put it in an account, and you earn interest on it until you have to pay it. So
Good stuff. Always outdoing me, Melody. I appreciate that. I always like to be around people that are smarter than me, and I'm doing good at it. All right, you guys, that is a wrap.